I kind of want to start, Grandpa, today, obviously talking about your mom and dad, kind of with like a general overview first, like tell me kind of like a bird's eye view first of your dad's life, and then we can maybe talk about stories and pictures and things. Does that make sense?
Do you want sort of his history? Do you want his date, birthday, and that kind of things, or what is it?
Yeah, if you have any of that information, that you have it all.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, he was born in Phillipsburg, Kansas.
Remind me what his name was.
Robert Zeb Roush.
Zeb.
He was always called Zeb at home, but he hated the name. So when he moved away, he started going by Bob.
Really? Okay.
Many of us don't like our middle name. I don't like mine either. He was Phillipsburg, Kansas is in western Kansas on the prairies of Kansas. Most of their farming had to be dry land. They had a little irrigation water, but it wasn't very regular. So life was pretty hard. In fact, it was called the Sand Hills of Kansas.
Really?
Think about what?
Yeah, trying to farm.
What that mean?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and he died in September, on September 13th, 1977. So he was 75 years old when he passed away. And he grew up on a farm west of Phillipsburg in Goodland, Kansas, right on the Colorado-Kansas border.
Okay.
Okay? And he wanted to go to high school. Well, he wanted to go to school. My grandpa let him, they felt if they had an elementary school education, that's all they needed.
Oh, okay.
They were needed to work on the farm.
Huh, okay.
But Dad loved school and wanted to continue, and his grandpa really was very adamant that he get working on the farm. But my grandma was a little more thoughtful and supportive of him, so she called her brother, who lived in Nebraska.
Okay.
He was a rancher, and asked if Dad could go up to Nebraska to go to high school. And so his name was Frank Baldwin.
Okay.
And he was a rancher in Nebraska. I've actually been to his ranch before he died.
Wow.
His family, the Baldwin family, owned a lot of land in western Nebraska, and they're cattle ranchers.
Okay.
My dad was the only one of the family that graduated from high school.
Wow. How many siblings did he have?
He had Aunt Desi, Uncle John, then my dad, then Aunt Claudine, and then Uncle Amos.
Okay.
5 children.
And he was the only one who graduated from high school?
He was the only one who graduated from high school. And in high school, living with the Baldwin family, he became close friends with, I can't remember his friend's name, but Frank Baldwin's son. And Dad wanted to go on to college.
Oh.
So Frank Baldwin said that he'd earn enough money that he could pay his tuition to college. And he went with Frank's son.
So his cousin.
His cousin.
Okay.
The two of them went to Graceland College.
Oh, wow.
You know which one that is, don't you?
Uh-huh.
That's a reorganized church college.
Oh, really?
In Independence, Missouri.
Wow.
The Baldwins were reorganized.
Okay.
And that's how Dad kind of got interested. in the organized church, but he didn't join.
Okay.
But when he got back to Graceland, he joined the reorganized church.
When he got back to Kansas?
Yeah, to
Okay.
Graceland College
Oh, okay.
in Missouri. No, it's where is it?
I don't know. I haven't heard of it.
Graceland College. My mind's blank. It's not Missouri, but it's back east,
Okay.
about mid-country, on the, Mississippi. I'm in that area.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think of where it is, but I can't. I'll think of it. Dad had 2 years of college at Graceland in engineering. Very good mathematician.
Huh.
Did very well, but he ran out of money.
Oh.
Totally ran out of money. And
so he was the first poor college student
I
in
doubt
our
it.
family.
But while he was back there, he met a man named Sheldon Schaefer. And that was interesting. The two of them, Sheldon Schaefer, my dad, traveled to Denver to find work. And I'm not sure why Denver, but they did.
Okay.
And now they were both members of the reorganized church by this time. Dad had been baptized.
While he was in college.
And while in college at Graceland, which was the reorganized church college, he joined. Uncle Sheldon already was. I shouldn't have said uncle, but that's what he became.
Oh.
When they got to Denver, they met sisters. My mom.
No way.
Yes, they met sisters. And Auntie Gail and Uncle Sheldon got married first. But I gotta back up a step. They were dating sisters.
Uh-huh.
And they were just doing odd jobs. I'm not sure what work they were doing in Denver at this time. But the boys decided to go to a Denver University football game. Somehow they miscommunicated with the two sisters and left them out of it. I think they had a date and forgot or something. It was too thrilling to get to go to a Denver University football game. And Mom had never forgot that. She told me that several times. That it almost split them up. Almost none of them got married because of the two boys going to the football game. But Auntie Gail and Uncle Sheldon went ahead and got married, but Dad and Mom decided to wait. I think he was too broke.
Okay.
So at this point in his life, he went back to Kansas and got a job as a school teacher.
Oh. Okay.
On the Utah-Colorado border near Goodland, where they were living, a little bit out of town. And these schools were just out in the middle of the prairie where the farmers would bring their kids in.
Okay.
But it was a one-room schoolhouse, a wood-fired stove, and he was 10, 15 miles, I can't remember, from the nearest town.
Wow.
He slept in the school and cooked his own meals in the schoolhouse.
Wow.
And went into town about once a month to get himself some supplies. Another interesting part of this, out in the prairie there's not a lot of wood. And it was a wood stove.
Uh-huh.
So he would have the students go out at recess and gather what brush and wood they could find. And the other thing they burned was cow chips. Dried cow chips, buffalo droppings and so
And would he have the students gather those too?
Yeah. Yeah, well, they were dried.
Yeah.
They were all dried out, sun-dried.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's no odor really at all. That's what Dad and my grandpa actually burned a lot of living on Goodland because there wasn't a lot of wood.
So he wasn't living with his parents at the
No,
time. He was
about 50 miles away
Okay.
out at this school. I'm not sure the exact situation between the two places, but no, he didn't. He'd have to walk wherever he went.
Yeah.
He didn't have a car or anything.
How old was he at this point?
He had to be
just general
20,
range.
22, 23,
Okay.
maybe. And he taught all the grades from first grade through, I guess, high school. I don't know.
Wow.
Not through high school, but to high school.
To high school.
So that would probably be 9th, 10th graders. He had the whole gamut of kids.
Wow.
Probably 1 or 2 kids in a grade, you know. Yeah, he taught school for years. And he and Mom communicated by mail, letters.
Wow, letters.
And I think it took not too long because he was on the Colorado border almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Denver was a third of the way across the state.
Okay.
So it was probably 2 days to get mail. But I have some of those letters.
Wow.
Somewhere in our storage. Because when Mom died, she had kept all of that stuff. And I got some of those letters.
That would be amazing.
That they wrote back and forth to each other.
That'd be so cool.
While he was teaching school in Kansas.
That is amazing.
Anyway, he came back to Denver, and Mom and Dad married, and this is an interesting part of the story. They were married by Mom's dad,
Okay.
Alfred Noblet.
Okay.
The 2 girls were Noblets.
Uh-huh.
But by this time, Grandpa Noblet had become disaffected in the organized church and became a pastor in the Church of Jesus Christ Temple Lot. Have you ever heard
Wow,
of that?
yes.
Yeah. He was a pastor in that church. So my mom and dad were married in the Church of Jesus Christ Temple Lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I
Yeah.
never knew that.
Now, to go into Mom's history for a little bit right now,
Yeah.
she graduated from high school quite young. But even before she graduated, she started beauty school,
Oh, okay.
beautician. And by the time she was 17, she was working as a beautician in a barber shop
Wow.
on South Gaylord Street, and that's another part of the story where we lived. South Gaylord was a business district in East Denver.
Okay.
And the barber gave her a corner of his barber shop to do beauty work.
Okay.
So I don't know how long she worked there, but she hadn't married Dad yet. She was working out right senior year in high school, first year after she graduated. And she was still working there, I think. No. She, quite young, rented another building for herself and opened Merce Beauty Shop.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what point she left that barber shop and rented this
Started her
land.
own.
But they got married, and then they lived with her dad and father.
Okay.
My mom's grandpa.
Oh, okay.
I know my mom's dad. Excuse
Okay.
me. He was Alfred Noblet.
He was the one who became the pastor.
Yeah,
in
the pastor.
Temple Lot.
He was a carpenter in his young life, and he fell off of a barn roof about, I'm not sure what age, young man, after he's married. He fell off a roof and really damaged his back and lived his life as in handicap.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I remember their house in East Denver, and I've got to visit them a couple times before he died, but I didn't know him, you know, for very many years. I knew him as an old man.
Yeah.
Kind of had, but he always struggled to do any physical labor after that.
Okay.
He and Dad got a job working for the, I have to look it up, an incubator company. They made incubators for chickens, where you
Oh,
put little
yeah.
eggs in and they
Mhm.
hatch.
Yeah.
Robin's Incubator Company was the name of it.
Okay.
But Dad and my grandpa, Noblet, his father-in-law, got a job there. But Dad did most of the physical labor
Okay.
for two people. And they worked there for a couple of years. And then the Depression was in full blast at this time.
Yeah.
They got married in the midst of the Depression, actually.
Wow.
And Dad couldn't find work.
Hmm.
So can you guess what he did? He went to beauty school.
Wow. Okay.
And I grew up in the back of the Merce, or my mom's beauty shop.
Huh.
And my mom and dad did beauty work. And all the women wanted Dad to do the work. I guess he was good at it, but he hated it. But she at one time had probably 4 or 5 beauticians working in that shop.
Wow.
And one of them was Auntie Gale, who had married Uncle Shelby.
Yes. Okay.
She did, what do you call it, nails? What's the word?
Pedicure, manicure.
Manicure. She was a manicurist in the beauty shop.
Okay.
And so
So how long was your dad teaching in Kansas before they got
probably a
married?
year and a half.
Just
so
a
I'm
year,
not
okay.
sure, not very long.
And then he went out to Denver and he had enough money and moved.
They got married, and
Okay.
I don't know exactly the month sequence of those,
Mhm.
but that's the way it happened. We lived there in the back of that beauty shop. I think my brother Rich was born and lived there. At least Mom and Dad and 2 boys lived in the back of that beauty shop.
Hmm.
And it was typical city living.
Yeah.
But in those days there was an alley,
Oh yes.
you know,
Uh-huh.
at the behind, and that's where we played. I can remember
Playing in the alley.
vividly playing in the, no cars were there around at the
Uh-huh.
time. We played in the alley. And I went to Washington Park Elementary School, which was about 4 blocks from the beauty shop.
Okay.
And it was,
But this was in Denver. You hadn't
this
moved
was
to
in
Dillon
Denver.
yet.
No. Dillon isn't entered the story at
That's
all.
not there yet. Okay. I
So-
want. Oh, sorry.
We lived there, and I remember sitting at the radio and listening to President Roosevelt declaring war on Japan in the back of that beauty shop. Listening to the radio. Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. So it was 1942. Wasn't
Yeah.
it? About that.
End of 41, beginning of
Yeah,
42.
yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, that was very dramatic.
That's amazing. I wanna backtrack and ask you about your mom. You know, her growing up and
Yeah.
what was her full name?
Okay, let's do that. Mom was born in Lamona, Iowa. I'm pretty sure.
Iowa. Wow.
Lamona Trainer, Iowa. She was born into an organized family.
Okay. What was her full name, by the way?
Inez, Mirth, Noblet,
Noblet.
and Roush.
Then it became Roush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Inez, Mirth, Noblet. I don't know an awful lot about her in eastern Colorado. That's where she was born.
Okay.
But they moved. This is my grandpa who had the injury to his back.
Yes.
They moved to Denver, and that's where Mom and Dad is in Denver.
Was in Denver.
And I'm not sure, but they moved there probably when she was a young teenager or even before.
So she was born in Iowa and then moved to
Moved to
Denver
Denver,
when she was
Colorado.
about a teenager.
Mhm.
When was she born?
She was born, well, October 19th, 1908.
Oh wait. Okay, so she was several years younger than your dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. And I remember, I don't remember Grandma and Grandpa Noblet very well, but I remember they had a house in southwest Denver, up on a hill. And I remember going over there with Mom and Dad, and I remember it was a steep hill, and I remember it was brick. They used to lay brick for roads. And I remember Dad and Mom complaining about how rough that road was to get up to Grandma and Grandpa's house. I don't remember my grandpa hardly at all. I really I think he was, I think I knew him bedridden, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I knew Grandma
Okay.
quite well. After he died, after he died, Grandma Noblet, I don't know if they owned the house or they rented, but the family, my aunts and uncles, my dad and mom, moved her out into Golden, Colorado, and built her a little house.
Oh, okay.
You know, just a little one-room house. And I remember going to see her many times before she died.
Okay.
She lived quite a while after Grandpa died.
Okay.
But lived, now Golden is just a suburb of Denver.
Okay. See, I
To
didn't
the
know
west
that.
of Denver.
Okay.
Golden, Colorado is a suburb of Denver.
Okay.
And they took Grandma Noblet out there and built her a little tiny house that she lived in.
Okay. What did your grandpa do in... You can have a seat here if you want. In a comfy chair.
That's not on.
Oh, it's on.
It's on, but
it
go
won't get
ahead.
you.
Just
You're
jump
good.
across.
You're good. We're very informal. No worries.
Um,
So what did your
I don't
grandpa
know,
do?
I don't know
then,
what
do you
Grandpa
know?
did after those years that Dad worked with him.
Mhm.
I really don't know. I don't think he could hardly do much of anything. I
Okay.
guess maybe by that time they had an old age pension. I really don't know how they financed themselves.
Interesting.
Uh,
Was your mom able to go to school though?
Mom never went to anything but beauty school.
Okay.
You know, she got a beautician certificate, but I don't know what that took. I was too young to know how she got it.
Do you know, like, could she read? And...
Oh yeah, she was very literate.
Okay.
In fact, she was brilliant. I think she graduated from high school early, didn't she? I think she did, a year early. Remember, she was working in a beauty shop quite young.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
She's
And-
16.
Hmm? 16? Oh.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, so where was I?
Talking about grandma and...
Okay.
Yeah. Golden, Colorado.
Yeah, Grandma lived a long time.
Okay.
I knew her, and you met her, Grandma Noblet, living out in Golden, Colorado.
Okay.
She lived right close to my aunt and uncles out there, lived in that area. So, let's see, where are we now?
Do you know how your mom and dad met?
At church, at the organized
church?
church.
Okay.
Yeah, they were, and Uncle Sheldon and Dad went to church.
And met
I met
Aunt Gail.
Aunt Gail and
your mom.
Oh.
Okay. Tell me more about your mom being in the reorganized church. Their family was there, but your dad or her dad was
Well,
there.
I have to go back to tell about that.
Okay.
I have to go back to Nauvoo.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
mind you go back there?
Yeah, let's go.
The Richards family was part of my mom's
Okay.
family.
Like Willard Richards?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And what happened was, and you might have to correct me a little, what happened was...
That's okay. We can fact check later. I just want to hear the stories.
They,
Sound like you're on a horse.
okay, gotta go back there. The Richards family had several children, and one, I can't remember his name.
Augustus.
Was it Augustus Richards? He, now I gotta back up again. Lucy
Go
Ann,
ahead, go back.
Lucy Ann Richards was his daughter. Okay?
Was Willard Richards' daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
She married, I can't remember the name now, because it's on the women's side, the names keep changing. But she was a Richards, and Augustus Richards started west with the Pioneers,
Okay.
with his family. But Lucy Ann by this time had been married. She wasn't. She
Okay.
didn't go with him. He got to winter quarters.
Okay.
Terrible winter, and quite a few of the saints didn't go on west. He went back, I think. I'm not sure where he was. He was actually in the military for a while. He went back and was part of the group that formed the reorganized church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
He was
Augustus
part of that
Richards.
group.
I can't tell you what part he played, but he was a member. So
Like one of the original members.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my family, down to my mother, were reorganized.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you. I got it on the computer, but I can't tell you.
Yeah, we can look at it after. But
We can sure tell you. Anyway, that's how Mom got into the reorganized church.
Wow.
Through the Richards line.
I'm curious if you know off the top of your head what took them eventually to Colorado. Your mom's family.
Well, it was just.
Was it?
It was my
your
dad's and my
your
grandpa's injury. He couldn't do that kind of work anymore.
So they were always in Iowa until he had to move to Denver.
Yeah, until they moved to Denver. They moved directly, I believe, from Iowa to Denver. If they did anything in between, I don't know about it, because they were there. They were there at the point where I met my grandpa and grandma in Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was already pretty handicapped.
Wow.
By the time I knew him, I was much of his injury and the fact he couldn't work happened before I knew him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's next?
I'm curious to hear about your dad, his personality, what his hobbies were, his spirituality. What you remember, any stories that illustrate his personality, maybe. Let's start there.
He was a kind, thoughtful person. But my mom was a pepper. He invented.
Really?
He invented things.
Is that because of his engineering background?
Yeah, they were practical things.
Okay.
He made the first lifting hay buck that I know of.
I don't even know what that is.
Okay, he turned an old Model A truck around.
Okay.
So the dual tires were going forward, and you stirred from the rear. And then he had a big tire that dropped down on the tires that were rotating, and that would tighten up a rope. So he'd go down the windrow and pick up a load of hay, then he'd gauge the distance to the haystack, pull a lever, and it would lift the hay buck up off the ground to the height of the haystack.
Wow.
And he'd drive over and dump it on the stack. Back up and let it down. Yeah, first lifting hay buck. Now they have them hydraulic all the time, but they didn't have that then. But he had that for quite a few years, and people come and look at it and smile. Wow, how did you do that? You know.
Wow.
But it worked, and it worked pretty well. His own Model A truck running backwards. What that meant was he could put the lift right up against the truck.
Okay.
You know, and it'd lift and steer from the rear. If he'd done it the other way, it'd been way out in front of him.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
In other words, he moved all of his controls right back at the back of the truck.
Which is how they do things now, you know. The tractor, there's it's in front of them.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And
so when did he go from being a beautician?
Okay.
To being,
gotta go back there.
Okay.
Like I told you, I heard Roosevelt declare war.
Yeah.
That changed things.
Okay.
Immediately, the economy got better because they were starting into the war effort.
Yeah.
And Mom and Dad were doing very well, and things were looking up. And Dad, and I think Mom, but mostly Dad, didn't want to do beauty work. So they went looking for a ranch. That's what he wanted, a cattle ranch.
Okay.
It took them a couple, 3 years to decide, but by 1944, they bought the ranch in Dillon.
Okay. How far is Dillon from?
Dillon's 77 miles west of Denver.
West of Denver.
It's up over the Continental Divide.
Okay.
It's up in the mountains.
Okay. So I remember with my family, we've driven through Dillon and we drove past their home, but I don't think we got out. But.
Yeah. So we bought the ranch. When we moved up there was no house. So we still lived in Denver until 44 because Dad and my Uncle John, his brother, would go up and work in the summers building a house.
Okay.
And they built you saw the house.
Describe it. Remind me what it was like.
Well, I remember going up with Dad and Uncle John and my brother Rich. The other brothers were too much younger than that to do that. But go up, and I remember an old Ford tractor, old steel wheel tractor.
Okay.
Have you ever seen those with the steel wheel?
I think I maybe have. Have you?
They weren't rubber tires; they were steel wheels.
Okay.
And what Dad would and Uncle John have Rich and I do, that's my brother, go down to the river and load up, and they kind of gave us an idea of the size rocks. And we load up a slip. Now a slip is hard to describe. It's a thing that just drags around across the ground. It looks like a big spoon, about this wide, with two big handles on the back.
Okay.
And you could actually use it to dig. If something pulled you along, you could lift those handles. The top front of the metal would kind of start down, digging in the ground a little bit.
Oh, okay.
That's a slip. When you got it full, you push down on the handle, and it just skidded on the bottom of the metal.
Okay.
So we would go down to the river and load that slip up with rock, and either Rich or I would drive the old Fortune tractor back up to the house, which is about a quarter of a mile from the river to the house, with a load of rock, and Dad and Uncle John would set those rock in concrete, and they built the foundation for the house out of river rock.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And I remember doing that with my brother during the summer. And our ranch at that time had 2 barns on it.
Oh, okay.
That was the only buildings on the ranch. These 2 barns, but they were built out of logs.
Oh, okay.
The Swedes would come into the valley and contract with ranchers to build them a log barn. So there was several log barns up and down the valley. We had 2 of them on our property.
Okay.
Now these are 2-story barns with a hay loft to put hay in. Okay.
Wow.
Dad decided to take the logs out of one of those barns to build a house.
Oh, okay.
So he put little numbers in the end of each of the logs so he could reassemble it, tear it down, reassemble it, and get the logs to fit. But then he found out that it really wasn't going to work very well. So he didn't tear the barns down at that time. He actually built the house out of log siding that he bought at a lumber yard. You know, it's only about that thick. It's a half a log.
Yeah.
So the house looks like logs, but it's
just
a
half
frame house.
Okay.
And he about that built pretty well when we moved up that summer in 1944.
Okay.
That the house was built. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water.
Wow.
We had a fireplace. He had Folsom. Remember, there's too much to tell. Mom lived with a family named Folsom in Denver. He was a bricklayer.
Okay.
And Dad got him to come up and build the fireplace and the chimney.
Out of brick.
Out of brick and stone and beautiful. That's what he did. I remember, I can't remember his first name right now. He came up, and he was an old man by this time, but he built that fireplace and built the chimney, 2-story chimney.
Wow, but that was beautiful.
It was very, very nice. And we had that fireplace, and Dad found an old, I don't know where he got the stove, for the kitchen. It was a coal wood stove.
Yeah.
And that's what heated our house the first winter.
Wow.
And I remember when we went up to bed upstairs, Mom got so mad at me if I took a glass up with water in it. Because by the morning, it would be frozen.
Oh.
We had about that many blankets on us. The first winter. And we jump out of bed and run downstairs. Then got a furnace in, got that by the next winter, so things went so bad. But I remember another story that's worth telling.
Yeah.
We wanted a telephone line. Mom was a beauty shop, she needed a telephone. Dad and I went with Dad and Uncle John. Now this was his brother who lived with us. Actually, we actually built him a cabin.
Oh, okay.
He was a year older than my dad.
Okay.
He and Dad and I and Rich went up in the mountains. During World War II, the Army Corps of Engineers had run special telephone wire from Denver over to Leadville, which came right to our property.
Oh, okay.
So I remember Dad and Uncle John going up and rolling up all this wire.
Wow.
And then we hooked it up at our house and ran the wire from our house to Dillon, about 1.5 miles, to get a phone line to my mom.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how we got our first phone. And it was the old crank type. Ring, ring.
Uh-huh.
We were 2 longs and a short. That was our ring. And that was a community line.
Okay.
And if you got on the phone, somebody was talking, you had to hang up.
Pretty
There
fast.
was about 15 families that was on this same line.
That you guys ran.
Yeah. Well,
So you ran.
they were part of it, but they eventually ran that line on down the river.
Okay.
But at first we were about the only 2 people on it.
Okay.
But it soon ran on down. And then I think the power company put in the line. So
Okay.
we had a line for at least a year that we had run to town.
Wow.
And Mom opened her beauty shop in one where Dad built her a beauty shop in that new house he built
Wow.
in Dillon.
So
And
she continued to be a beautician.
Oh yeah, she never stopped being a beautician.
Wow.
She had the longest continuous beauty license in the state of Colorado when she died. The time,
No way.
From the time she was, what, 16, 17, till she was 80 something.
Amazing.
Just a quick little story about that. She was getting a little old and a little bit senile, but all these people would call her for an appointment, and she'd forget. And they show up at the door, and she said, sure.
Wow.
And I shouldn't get so far off the subject, but
No, you're
I
fine.
think one of the things that bothered me most, she didn't have any girls. And so she decided to give me a permanent for my senior high school graduation picture.
No.
And I think I've got a picture.
You got it.
do? Oh, I want to see that.
Oh, that was frustrating. Yeah. I really didn't know what she was doing.
And then she finished and you looked in the mirror.
But anyway, yeah, she was a great beautician.
So she stayed a beautician the whole time. It was your dad that switched
Yeah.
and did a little bit of everything.
Well, when Dad moved to Dillon, it was hard for him to find the kind of work. He's going to be a rancher.
Yeah.
Trouble was, when you sold a ranch, you lost your range rights. Now, range rights are government land that you can run your cattle on. If you lose that, then you've got to have enough land that you purchased to not only let those cows graze during the summer, but raise enough hay to feed them through the winter. He couldn't do both.
Okay.
So he soon found out he couldn't make a profit running that ranch without government graze. And it was because the land had sold. The government was trying to get rid of grazeland. There are still some places you could, but up in the mountains of Colorado, they want it for other things. The people in the government didn't want ranchers running cattle out there where they could have ski resorts and sell the land and all that other stuff.
So they wanted people to buy the land.
They wanted to get rid of the graze.
Grazing.
The graze is government property.
Okay.
It's
So they want to
government
sell it and
property.
make a profit on it.
Well, they wanted, yeah, and they had all sorts of, oh, you're overgrazing, you're causing all kinds of problems with cattle grazing on the land.
Okay.
They still have, I don't know if they have grazeland anywhere anymore.
I don't know.
But if they don't, it just about runs the cattlemen out. There still has to be government graze somewhere because they're big ranches. And
That's
you can't own that much land and pay taxes on it.
Oh, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
If you have 2,000 acres to run cattle on, you get to run your cattle on and have to pay taxes on it, you got a problem. So you have your 150-acre ranch, and then you use the government land to graze your cattle on. That's the way the West was built, running cows on government grazeland.
So, but your dad found out that he couldn't do that.
Once he bought the land, he lost his graze rights.
Okay.
The people who owned it before us had graze rights. We lost it because we bought it.
Okay. So what did he do?
So he went to work for the Public Service Company of Colorado. That's an electric company.
Okay.
And when he first hired on there, I remember this vividly. The electrical power plant in Dillon was run by hydro turbines. In other words, you had water running over the turbines to make the electricity.
Okay.
Okay. They don't have too many of those anymore, but that pipe started way up the canyon, Straight Creek, where they took the water out of the ditch and kept it nice and high, and then dropped it down into the turbines to get water pressure, and that was the Dillon Power Station.
Okay.
He went to work there, but he didn't get to run the power station at first. It was his job, and I think Uncle John did the same with him. He was still working with him. They went up, and during the winter, they had to skim the ice off of the intake stream where it came in.
Oh, wow.
Because if that ice went down and into the turbines, you could break them.
Okay.
So they had to get all the ice off the stream before
wow.
it went into those pipes. So they spent 1 or 2 winters skimming ice, and then they did other things for public service, like run power lines and repair them. Then finally he got the job, and by this time Uncle John, I don't know what he did then. Uncle John had actually, I don't know, but Dad got the job as the operator. Remember, he had 2 years of college.
Yes.
So he got the job running the power plant.
Okay.
So he operated the Dillon power plant.
And is that what he did for the rest of his life
No.
then, or did he still?
He did that for a few years until the Denver Water Board bought up the water rights and put in a dam, and that got rid of the power plant.
Uh-huh.
So he moved up to the same company substation where all the lines come in and then they divide the power.
Yes.
That was called a substation. He retired. Well, he didn't actually retire from there. He worked there for quite a few years until they got rid of the substation. Then they moved him over the mountain to
Pleasant Spring?
toward Denver. Anyway, to a power station over the other side of the Continental Divide. And he had to drive over the mountain every day to work until he retired.
Really?
In other words, he worked for the Public Service Company of Colorado for quite a few years, but at 3 different places.
Okay.
But that's where he retired.
And he would have to go over the mountain every day to work.
He got a Willys Jeep, only it was a little station wagon.
Okay.
And he made that trip every day over Loveland Pass.
Was that dangerous?
Yeah.
It was kind of tough, but he was a good driver and he had 4-wheel drive and
Okay.
he wasn't in a big hurry.
Wow.
I don't think more than 2 or 3 days in the 10 years he worked there did he not get to work on time.
Wow.
He always left an hour early to be sure and that
Uh-huh.
kind of thing.
And he worked there until he retired.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
So he retired from Public Service Company, which is like Utah Power and Light on
Yeah.
Colorado.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And did he have any hobbies?
Most of his hobbies were making things, you know. He did all kinds of, he made the first automatic garage door, lifting garage door that I ever saw. And it was not the what you kind you see today. Instead of rolling up and going in,
Yeah.
it was just a big door that came up. You remember that one, that garage door? Yeah, he was
Wow.
always making things to make life easier,
Yeah.
and he was good at it. He could design almost anything.
You mentioned that he was a very kind person.
Yeah.
Can do any stories or any examples come to mind that his kindness?
He always was doing things for people in his neighborhood. I remember, this isn't necessarily kindness, but he was good at it. He ran for office. He was on the Summit County School Board.
Oh.
And the thing he saw was the little schoolhouse that I went to was just not sufficient as a population grew. So he actually sat down and drew plans, not the final building plans, and took them to an
Architect.
architect. Well, is it called an architect? Anyway, to draw the plans for the new Dillon school. And he went out and worked and worked and worked to get the bonds passed to build that school in Dillon.
Okay.
And it was a nice, really nice big building. But the building I went to when I went to elementary school in Dillon was 2 rooms.
Okay.
First through 5th, and then, no, 1st through 4th, and then 5th through 8th or 9th.
Okay.
That was 2 rooms.
Wow.
And that was the school.
Wow.
But when he finished it, he had a gymnasium and,
Wow.
yeah, a really nice big school with 6 or 8 classrooms, you know. And then that had to be taken down when they filled Dillon and the dam. But see, there was quite a few years there. They used that new school he built for about 12, 13, 14 years.
Wow.
The time before it started growing the population before they started on the building the Dillon Dam.
Okay.
Quite a few years. Different things caused the population to change and influxes to change, and so he got that school built. What I'm saying is his kindness was not only to individuals, but it was thoughtful things he did for the community.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Quite a few things that Dad did. He actually, one of the neatest things Dad did, he was a square dance caller.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And he got the equipment and would never charge anything, but he started having square dances around the county.
Wow.
Boy, they were well attended. I remember the one met at the Frisco Town Hall, and they met in the Dillon Town Hall. He got so popular that he couldn't keep up with all the square dances.
He had a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a musician too. Played guitar and sang.
He did everything.
Very well rounded in many ways. Yeah. And he was an avid reader.
Oh.
Oh man. But he loved to read things about science, scientific things. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah, I remember a set of books that he got where, I can't remember, they were paperbacks, about 12 volumes of mechanics, science, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yes.
How to fix things on. Yeah. He continued his education even though
Wow.
he went to school.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
He was kind in many ways, but he wasn't dramatic. You know,
Yeah.
he was behind the scenes.
That's awesome.
Had a great laugh.
A great laugh.
Did he? Yeah.
Tell me about your mom. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Dad just was a good man. A really good man.
Tell me about your mom's personality.
Mom-
You mentioned earlier that she was a pepper.
Yes. Well, think of somebody who starts their own beauty business, you know,
Yeah.
buys the building, hires beauticians.
Yeah.
They made it through the Depression. I mean, a lot of businesses didn't. They did.
Interesting.
Oh, one thing along that line to show my mom. I had trouble reading when I started school. I don't know why, but I had a lot of trouble. She paid Helen Reese in beauty business, and I think she paid her a little money too, to teach me to read. And that was when I was in about the third, fourth grade, somewhere in there. For a couple of years, I'd go to Helen Reese's twice a week, and she was a school teacher, a great teacher, elementary, and she taught me to read.
Wow.
And Mom paid for it with beauty work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mom paid for a lot of things by doing
beauty work. Sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I never had any trouble after she taught me. Did well in school.
Okay.
But I didn't up to that point.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what caused it. I think it was laziness.
I can't picture you being lazy ever in your life.
but yeah.
What else about your mom's personality or examples of?
To me, she's a good, honest business person. She was very honest.
Okay.
But she grew up, well, my grandmother, her mother, was kind of a hard woman. Remember, her husband was handicapped.
Yeah.
You know, so they were just hard-working people. But Mom's personality wasn't easygoing. She was a little nervous, getting things done.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But she was kind. She was a good mom, and she raised her children well. But she was busy all the time. She was in that beauty shop all the time. She earned as much or more than Dad did, much of her life. You know, but and she had a lot of friends, but they were not close. How do I say that? They were dropping in all the time, that kind of friends.
Yeah.
She had some from Denver that she'd had when she was in Denver in beauty work that stayed close to her for quite a while.
Okay.
One of her dearest friends was, where's that picture? It's upstairs. Elsie Haynes.
Okay.
I don't know if you know anything about her.
I don't know.
Okay. Elsie Haynes was a World War I bride. She married an American.
Oh, okay.
Came to Colorado, but she was an artist. She was a great artist. And she loved to come to Dillon. She was mostly a landscape artist. She just and she loved the mountains, the pictures of the mountains, the rivers, and she painted beautiful things. Elsie Haynes has probably 8 or 10 pictures in the National Art Gallery.
Wow. And she was your mom's friend?
Yes. She did her work in pastel chalk.
Okay.
Which is very difficult because you touch it, it smears.
Huh.
But she always worked in chalk.
And when she came to Dillon, would she visit you guys?
When she came to Dillon, she stayed with us.
Oh, wow.
And I remember getting her, oftentimes taking her in a car up, saying, well, where she wanted to go. I was about 15, 16 at the time.
Wow.
She came for years in the summers, at least for 2 or 3 weeks to paint in Summit County. It had to be somewhere.
Wow.
She didn't paint too many buildings. She could, but she didn't. That wasn't her thing.
She liked landscape.
She liked landscape. She liked the colors. She liked sunsets, clouds. But she had very, very famous artists. Now, we had quite a few of her paintings. We still have one. It's upstairs. We just got it mounted.
Oh, wow.
It's one she did in California on the seacoast. We didn't go to church hardly at all.
Okay.
In Denver, before we moved, I was young enough, I know, we didn't go to church hardly at all.
Okay.
In Dillon, she would go to the community church more for the socialization.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To friends. But she didn't go, but she sent us to the little community church.
Okay.
In Dillon, the Dillon church. We went to church. Dad didn't go much because he worked. You know, he was shift work.
Mm-hmm.
So we were raised with the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Because she was reorganized,
Mm-hmm.
and she would read to us from the Book of Mormon a couple times a week. Yeah, that's how come I ended up joining the church when I did, because I knew.
The Book of Mormon?
Yeah, I didn't have a testimony of it at the time, but I knew what it was.
So your grandpa became a pastor in the Church of Jesus Christ Temple lot, but the rest of the family stayed in the reorganized church? Or do you know how that happened?
I don't. Let me tell you that story real quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
This Uncle Sheldon that was
Yeah.
a close friend of Dad's, he became a pastor in the reorganized church in Denver.
Okay.
And at that time, I guess Mom and Dad were going to church. You know what I'm saying?
In Denver.
Yeah, I don't know much about that because I was a tiny baby at that time. But I guess they were going to church. But what happened was that sometime, Uncle Sheldon got a little upset at the congregation smoking in the building.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, so he gave a little lecture on it.
Okay.
And they voted him out.
Oh, wow.
In the organized church, you could do that.
Okay.
It isn't up to somebody up above to tell him to.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, they voted him out. That, I think, as near as I can glean, was a turning point in the family's life.
Okay.
Yeah.
In what sense?
I think they just, well, you know how people get offended.
Yeah.
And Mom and Dad, the whole family got offended with the way the congregation acted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they didn't want to go that one anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't another one. There wasn't another organized church in Denver. That was the only one.
Okay.
So I think that might be, nobody ever said anything, but I think that might be the turning point. Now, I don't know why my grandpa, I don't know when he joined the organized church temple.
Hold on.
I don't know.
Interesting.
But he was, at the time Mom and Dad got married. Now, that was before. So I don't know whether he'd already changed.
I want to see some of your pictures, if that's okay.
Okay. This is a pretty good picture of my mom when she was about 60.
And she went by Mirth then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another picture of her. Just, this is just probably before she passed away.
Wow. Is this in the home? This was her
That's
beauty
her
shop?
house.
Is that her beauty shop?
I think it might be.
So are these pictures of hair then?
Yeah,
And when did she die?
When? I'd have to look it up the year. She died 1995.
Okay.
This is Mom and Dad.
Sorry, let me do this one.
This is Mom and Dad. Probably 20 years earlier than that.
Okay.
They did that.
Yeah, it's 10 years. This one says 1979 on it.
Does this
On the
have
back.
a date on it?
That one says down there, 1970, January 1970.
I couldn't read it. My eyes were
You're
crooked.
fine.
But I don't think you can scan this.
We'll take a picture of this.
Yeah. That's about all the pictures I have.
Tell me more real quick. So is she sitting in a beauty chair then, or?
Yeah, that's the chair that the people, yeah, see, that's the chair all the way across. Her legs are just there.
Okay.
So that's her beauty chair that she
That's what
works
she
on.
would sit for you.
Yeah.
Pull in.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah.
And is that a dog? You guys had a dog?
Oh yeah, that's Keiki, I believe.
Okay.
That was her last dog.
Okay. And what are these? She's got like trophies and things?
Uh-huh. I told you, didn't I?
You said that she was licensed longest.
Oh
I don't
no,
remember.
but she won several awards in the state of Colorado as a beautician.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, you can't even see the trophies in that one.
I don't know if you've seen this. This is their tombstone.
Oh.
I took that picture.
And is this, are they buried in Dillon?
Now, his mom died at that time, or just dad?
No, just Dad.
Just dad, yeah. Yeah, that's
This was here
right.
in 1979.
It says on the back. You said this is Dillon?
Yeah. This is Buffalo, and this is Red Peak, and our ranch would be right about down there,
Okay.
off the hill. This is the Dillon. Now that's another quick story.
Yeah.
They built a dam,
Okay.
flooded the town of Dillon. They had to move the town.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They had to move the town down below the dam and up on the side of the hill.
Wow.
And they had to move every grave in the graveyard in Dillon.
Oh,
And
wow.
they moved it up here and made a new graveyard, and that's where Mom and Dad got their land when they made the new.
Wow. So they hadn't
They hadn't
been
died.
buried in the previous.
No, but
This
they
is
bought.
where
They bought. I forget. 12 grave.
Oh.
In fact,
In this new
I inherited 4 grave sites in Dillon.
Wow. Look at that one.
Isn't that a pretty scene to look out over?
That's amazing. That's a great view.
That's up on the side of the hill.
And I'm sorry, let me see real quick. Tell me again, where's the ranch at?
The ranch would be down. Okay, can you see the valley at all? I
Okay,
think that's the valley down.
Okay.
Our ranch would be off this picture right about there.
Okay. Wow. There you go.
Yeah, it's a very short drive from our ranch where we live up to that.
So this is your dad.
Uh-huh.
This is your mom. And how much, so this was 1970, your dad died in 75, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and he was born in 1902, is that what you said? So in this picture, he's 68.
Yeah.
Okay. He's good, he looks good for 68.
Yeah.
What did he die of?
Heart attack.
Heart attack.
What
did your mom pass away of?
I don't know what she passed away of, but she was quite old.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they.
Oh yeah, she would have been
age,
very
I'm
old.
not
She
sure.
would have been 80, what,
Well,
70,
I don't know what they
maybe.
call it, a heart attack or what they call
Okay.
it, but it probably was.
Sorry, you were saying something about your dad's heart attack, I think, or...
Dad had heart trouble for 10 or 12 years before he died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they didn't have heart surgery.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Back then.
Just on medicine.
Okay. Let me take a picture of that one, because that's amazing. So then your mom lived alone then, from
Yeah.
75 to 95?
Uh-huh. Yeah, she lived in the house alone. But my brother, Jerry, and his wife got an acre of ground from my mom when they started subdividing our ranch.
Okay.
They got an acre of ground, and they were only quarter mile or less.
So
from
they would
Mom's
take care of
house.
your mom?
So my sister-in-law, Elaine, Jerry and Elaine were the ones that lived in Dillon, and Elaine would come down every day, see that she was doing well. She'd even come down long before Mom quit doing beauty work. Because remember, Mom did it almost till the day she died.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. So she would come down, make sure that everything was ready for the day, and fix her lunch.
Okay.
Mom would find some cereal or something for breakfast, but she'd fix her lunch. And then she'd turn down again to put her to bed.
Okay.
And fix her a little bowl of soup or something
For
before she
dinner.
went.
Okay.
Elaine did a very thoughtful job of taking care of Mom that way.
That's wonderful.
And it was kind of interesting because as Mom got more and more handicapped with age, she used to always get herself in trouble. She'd get in her car and try to go to town. And almost every time she'd run into something. Her car was so beat up. And it was a new Buick. She bought a new Buick, little Buick. And it was so beat up by the time.
That's amazing.
Finally, my brother, Jerry, whose
Uh-huh.
wife is Elaine, she took the rotor out of the gate so she couldn't start the car. They would tell her, you can't drive, you can't drive, you can't
But
drive.
she would do it anyway?
And then she'd say, why won't my car start?
That goes back to her being a little bit of a pepper.
Yeah,
Wanting
yeah.
to be able to do things.
Yeah.
Was she a really independent woman then? Starting her own business?
I think so. She was very, but Dad was good at doing the books for her, and that kind of thing. But she actually took care of most of her own work. And I remember Dad would help her. But, they had a family budget.
Yeah.
The beauty shop, once it was in the house, wasn't that much work, you know what I'm saying? When she owned the building and had to hire people, that was different than just being her own beautician by herself in the house.
One thing that I'm curious about, you mentioned Uncle John a lot,
Uncle
and that was your dad's brother?
Yeah.
What took him to Colorado?
Uncle John was born legally blind.
Oh, wow, okay.
He could see, but not very well. He went to blind school when he was a little, but it was far away from where they lived in Goodland, so he was sent off to this blind school. I don't know how far it was, but he would spend quite a few months there.
Okay.
You know. So for a few years he wasn't close to Dad, but they were just a year apart in age, and they became best friends for a long time.
Wow.
Then, can't remember. Oh, Uncle John was drafted during World War II. I remember.
Okay.
Legally blind, he could see enough that he was drafted.
Wow.
It was late in the war,
Okay.
and so he never had to go into combat, but and when he got out, well, up to that time, I don't remember him being too much a part of our family, because it was during the war we moved from Denver to Dillon.
Yeah.
So I don't know, he worked back in Kansas and things like that. But he got drafted. When he got out of the Army, he came to Dillon.
Okay.
And there's so much to tell. Our neighbor was a widow lady, and she told Dad if he would pay her $100 a month, she would give him title to her ranch, which bordered ours.
Oh, okay.
It had a cabin on it.
Okay.
And so we gave Uncle John that
The
cabin to live in.
Okay.
That's how he got a place to stay free. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he lived there and ate most of his meals with Mom and with us. And it wasn't too far. It was, you could walk between his cabin and our house in a 15-minute walk. Yeah. And so during much of our time in Dillon, Uncle John worked at jobs around Dillon. Different things. See, Dad was working public service company. I don't know, Uncle John worked on trying to think of, he got jobs. He was capable. And he worked for quite a, boy, my mind's blank on that, but I know he worked. He wasn't a dread on, he didn't put us down at all. But he ate with us. And he had a cabin free, so he didn't have much cost, But he did have odd jobs and kept busy.
And was he married?
No, never married. No, he never married.
And you said he and your dad were very close friends growing up.
Yeah.
Was that before your dad went away to high school?
Yeah. Then he and Dad kind of, I can't remember when Dad and Uncle Sheldon came to Denver. I think Uncle John had come too. Uncle John had kind of a problem because he was kind of an outsider, do you know what I mean? Because of his blindness and he was not married. And I know he lived with us in Denver while we were in the beauty shop sometimes, but he worked. Yeah. I can't explain everything about Uncle John because he was gone and there and gone and there.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But I know that after he got out of the army, he came to Dillon and wanted work and wanted to be around us. He didn't have much other family. They had brother and sisters, but they were back in Kansas, moved away, and so he kind of hooked on to Dad and Mom and stayed with him.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and Uncle John was a good man. He was so funny. He worked his head off. And I remember one time after we got to Emo Ranch across the river, he was working with me. We were putting up fence, and he fell. It was on a steep hillside. He rolled all the way down the hill, and I thought, he's killed himself. He got up and said, "I'm okay." All dirty, skinned up. And he was very independent. I mean, he had to live his life that way.
Yeah.
And I remember he bought an old Dodge touring car, 1928 model. And then he bought something else, newer car. Can't remember what it was. Was it a truck? Yeah, he bought a pickup. And and took care of himself. He lived in that cabin almost for 15 years in that little cabin we let him live in. And he got his water out of the creek.
Wow.
That ran right by his house. That's where he got his water.
That's amazing.
And had an old outhouse.
Oh, wow.
And he was totally happy.
Yeah.
He had electricity, and that's about all he had in that cabin.
Wow.
He was so interesting. He cut little holes in the bottom of the glass to let the flies out of his house.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, got a little glass cutter and just cut a little arc in each of the pieces of glass. Said it's small enough, I don't get too much cold coming in them, but it lets the flies out. Because he'd watch a flies would land and try to find a way out. And so we cut him a hole. He was an interesting man.
I have just two more questions, and then I won't wear you out too much more. But I'm curious. What do you remember most about your dad, and what do you remember most about your mom?
I remember most about my dad was how he cared for, I would say, he wasn't like my wife. Not everybody, but he cared about the community, the people he worked with, his kids. He cared about his ranch, having it. He was just a really good man, had a good reputation everywhere he went, whatever he did. Honest.
How did he show his caring, for example, for his kids?
He was quiet.
People show caring in different ways. I'm curious how he showed caring.
Yeah. He would do anything for his kids that he felt they needed. Does that make sense?
For example?
He didn't buy us cars, but he'd always make sure that they ran. You know what I mean? That they were roadworthy.
Yeah. Trying to think of the best way. You just always knew
that he would do what you needed and take care of you. Never let you suffer. But he was kind of a loner too. Because like I say, he left home at age 12 or 13, you know. And, but he had good friends. Uncle Sheldon was about as close. And Andy Gale and Uncle Sheldon were up at our ranch all the time. They loved to come up, you know. He and Uncle Sheldon were close all their lives. He, I loved him dearly, but I can't say that I would go to him if I had a problem, you know. And he would give me his best advice. And then say, now you gotta make the decision. You know what I mean? Yeah. He didn't lecture. Mom would lecture. I didn't lecture.
Interesting.
He would tell you what you ought to do. You know. Yeah.
And what do you remember most about your mom?
She was
You can feel free to be honest.
She was first and foremost a businesswoman. Just think of a professional businesswoman. She ran things well. She and Dad loved each other a lot. They made a good pair together. They never hardly, I don't remember them ever arguing or fighting about it, hardly anything. I can't remember ever hearing them fight. But Mom, she had a problem having all boys. She really did. You know what I mean? So she got her love and fun with the women that came into her shop. She was close to them, you know, very close. And she was good. She was good that if somebody had a problem, she would even give money if she needed to. You know, she was good that way, and the people she loved and cared. And she was good to us. But I think she was a little bit, and she was awfully good to us. She came out when Tim was born, and she bought everything we could possibly need for a baby. Just went down, you know, came back with all of it. I was at work, and Jerry said, "Look at what your mom bought." She was very good and helpful, but it was hard to talk to her. How do I say that? I guess because I was a boy, a cowboy, and she was a beautician. I would tell her what happened during the day in school, and she'd say, "Good." And we as boys didn't cause much trouble ever in school or anything, you know. We knew that our parents were, what kind of values they wanted us to live. Yeah. But she would get a little mad at us once in a while. And, you know, she was working hard all day long. We didn't get something done that we needed to do. Dad would just give us that look, but Mom would pull your hair. Yeah, we got our hair pulled a lot. She wouldn't hit you, but she'd grab a handful of hair. Now you listen. But she was a good mom. She really was. They were good people. But I didn't get a lot of religious teaching in the home. She would read the Book of Mormon once maybe once a week on Sunday evening. You have to remember, we grew up without television. Yeah. I remember Dad loved the fights.
Yep.
And we had a good radio and a good antenna, and all the men would come in when there was a championship boxing match and listen to it on the radio. But Mom hardly ever listened to the radio. Yeah.
They sound like amazing people, Grandpa.
Well, they were good people. It prepared me in a way that I could accept the gospel very quickly when I was in the army. So I can't tell you exactly what, but I knew I had a value set that they infused in me. Yeah, it was a good life. In fact, like I said many times, when we moved to Dillon, I thought I died and gone to heaven because it was just so free. Just for a young kid my age, it was unbelievably free. You could go out, do anything you wanted to, and you didn't get in trouble. Today you would. I mean, things we did weren't wrong. It was just open, you know.